Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 402, recorded live on Saturday, October 17th. I'm your host, Patrick. The screenshot this week is Pentux preparing to fell the Guardian of Shantakor in the 243rd screenshot of the week. Great screenshot of that boss, actually. I love the glowing red eyes he's got going there. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Saber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday, October 24th, 1 p.m. Pacific time. I'm on the ball this time. Hey, look at me. Been a rough couple of weeks of planning shows out. But we are going to be talking about building raid caliber tanks with Voodoo Spice and Chai, maybe someone else as well. But that's going to be the focus, the topic of focus. Should be a good show. But for this week on the podcast, we've got big, bad, scary balance changes, which is Turbine's way of saying nerfs. Also, we're going to be looking at another DDO Debates episode, and we're going to be talking about mid-level content. So let me introduce who we've got here today. He's a casual but long-term DDO player. It's his second time on the show. He actually called in way back in the day with Jerry. Representing the Mature Adventurers Guild on Kyber, it's Hafeal.
Hey, thank you. Hello, DDO Land. Patrick, thanks again for your 400th episode and keeping the show going.
Yeah, it was a fun episode, right?
That was awesome.
It was a lot of fun putting that together. A lot of work, but a lot of fun putting that together. Also have, he's bringing a permadeath perspective. You can catch him with me on DDOCaSplat on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. He's probably got the lowest death count of the whole group. He's a member of the Old Timers Guild on Galandra. It is Bittersteel.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, actually.
And I've been avoiding it.
With probably good reason.
Yes.
Representing the Halfling Commandos from Sarlona, she brings not just a child's DDO perspective, but also a geek mom's. From Confessions of a Geek Mom, it's Judye.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, welcome back. We had Judye on a couple weeks ago for a show about kids in gaming, DDO specific, so it was a lot of fun. Great little discussion topic, a little out of the norm for what we normally do, but got some good feedback from that. So we're going to do a DDO Debates here. And the way this works is each guest will give them the opportunity to do an opening argument. We'll kind of rotate it around. We want the arguments to be creative, passionate, and amusing and factual, but they should not be mean. Counterpoints are encouraged. Interruptions are allowed at my discretion, which means you can probably interrupt a lot, as long as it's not me. And if what I went through is, so shouldn't have to have any trolls for this round, but points will be arbitrarily awarded by myself. They have absolutely no meaning, and the winner at the end gets absolutely nothing.
Can we agree with everyone?
It just makes it easier. I got bored. I don't know. It was kind of such a pain to actually figure out winners and losers and stuff like that. It just wasn't that much fun. So
Yeah, don't worry about that.
I think the debate's more of the fun.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, we're going to start with our first question, and we're going to be talking about mid-level content, which we are defining roughly levels 8 to 15. And in case you're wondering, the reason why we picked that is 1 to 7 we did for low-level content because it's basically up to Veteran 2 status, where you can just start with Veteran 2 status. This is kind of from that point until where you can start with an iconic, is kind of the idea of where we're. That's kind of the level range, why that level range is here. In any case, we're going to start with our first question. What is the best quest? And we're going to start with Hafeal.
Oh, you get to start with me. All right. The best quest that I enjoy playing, that I'm going to make sure that I play all the time, especially if I TR with my group, is going to be In the Flesh. It's at the top of this level range over at level 15. I think this has some of the most funny, laughable commentary in the game from the DM. And the quest itself has a lot of challenging elements to it. And it's just a great time. You know, I love going in there every time, make sure I got the audio up. So it's just a ton of fun.
And we're going to go to Bitter next.
So I think the best quest is Tempest Spine, because it is a raid, but you could also do it at a higher level with, a 6-person group, 5-person group, whatever. You could also run it naked because there's lots of chests, and you can just pick up whatever you find, and you have to use that. And it's actually pretty fun. There's a lot of different aspects of it that I like.
And Judye.
I chose Stormcleave it's at the lower end of the level. It's just right at level 8. It's a good start. I mean, if you run that on Epic, and you have to make sure you get Conquest, you get Ransack, and you run it all. It's a great open area. It's expansive, and it's a great time to take your Ranger in and just get everything from afar.
Because tell me why your quest is better than the other 2 quests here.
Why is mine better? There's a hell of a lot of things to kill. You can just go nuts in that. There is a hell of a lot of things to kill. It's just zerg right through and kill everything. It's a great way to burn off some steam.
That's a question for everybody, not just Judye.
I got you. Bitter, are you going to
go? Sure. My Tempest Spine is the best because I picked it, obviously. And no, well, come on. And no, it really is. It's versatile. I mean, it's really why I like it. There's a lot of different kinds of monsters. There's player range. I mean, you could run it at low level as a raid. You could format it. You could solo it. Maybe you could do whatever. There's a beholder. There's, I don't know, a whole bunch of different stuff. There's a couple traps. There's Dro to kill, because who doesn't like killing Dro? And there's lots of loot.
Yeah, but you know what? I have to tell you, in the flesh, it has 2 beholders, and both of them are really tough, including Dead Pixel, which
I can't argue with that. Both of the quests you guys picked are good too. Mine's just the best.
Yeah, I like Tempest Spine because it's got that raid element to it, but man, it's inevitable somebody's getting lost on that map no matter how many times they've run it. And I find it disappointing people don't run the Explorer area more, because everybody's just rushing to get it done. In the Flesh, to me, has that element of fail to it. It's really easy to wipe on that end fight, and I still see it even with veteran players. And I don't know, I guess I'm always looking for that a little bit, that chance of failure. So that's why I think getting a chance to go up to Yalthun and jumping around in all those brain pods, I just think that's a little better than that Tempest Spine run. Or Stormcleave is fun, but it just doesn't quite have that variety of spice.
I think you're trying to compare it to 2 of the original level quests too. That's part of the problem, as that Stormcleave and Tempest Spine are very early DDO quests, whereas in the Flesh is much later on. So there was a lot more involved. Different people made those quests.
Yeah, that's why my quest is better.
I don't know. I'm too old school. Maybe that's it, is that I like the nostalgic factor.
I mean, running Tempest Spine naked is the best ever. I mean, come on. You can't really do that much with any other quest in the game, can you?
No, I think that is one of the only quests that you ever hear anyone running naked is.
Shroud.
Naked Shroud. I've never done Naked Shroud.
I haven't either. I haven't even heard of that.
It's usually people taking not the same naked where you only use stuff as you go. It's usually they just take their armor off.
Oh, at least I'm glad you clarified that, because I thought it was everybody played naked.
That could happen
I
too.
always play naked, so.
All right, so let's see. I think for this one, Bitter, I think, has a clear victory here because of, we're saying, like, the variety of the actual quest in what you're killing. I think that's kind of a clear victory here. So I'm going to give Bitter 500 experience.
Was not for running it naked? What?
Well, that was good too. But I think I like what Judye was saying about the nostalgia factor and the expansive and lots of stuff to kill. So we'll give Judye 200 experience. and we'll give Hafeal 200 experience as well for, it does have that element of fail more so than the other two these days. I did like your knocks on the other two as well, especially about getting lost in Tempest Spine. That happens a lot. All right, so our next question is, what is the best quest for XP farming? And we're going to start this one with Bitter.
XP farming. Well, I don't really like to XP farm. I like the variety of doing all the different quests, but I'd have to say something like Madstone Crater in Giant Hold. Tons of experience, and it's a pretty fun quest. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff to do. So that's my vote.
Judye?
I'm going to say Von 3, just mostly because of how much XP you get from beginning to end. There's a lot of stuff to kill. There's a lot of different things to kill. You've got the drow, you have elementals, you have the trolls, you have beholders. And there's a lot of different terrain that you're running through. You run through the caverns. You've got the jump to off the waterfall, which 50% of the party usually fails trying to get to, which is always fun. You can always see who has the best Mario skills. And just that blast of an end fight, kill it until it dies. And there's a lot of XP that you can get out of that.
And Hafeal.
Well, I like Von 3, and that was a good pick, but obviously we have to give the lady first choice, correct? So I would go with probably Shadow Crypt. It's one that you can easily fill up a party for, and it's usually available. People are farming that all the time. I agree with Bitter. I do not tend to farm XP out of quests. I tend to be one and done. There's enough content in the game now that you don't really need to do that. But there's been a few times where if you have a really good party going, and they'll keep that window open, and that's one that I've actually, I've done. It's it's easy to get to, it's quick to do, so that would be my vote.
So again, why is yours better, and why is it better from a perspective of getting XP? It's got Shadow Crypt's got a nice base XP. You got a lot of bonuses there. I mean, I think it's better than Madstone because, I don't know, Madstone's never been an XP run. It's kind of, first off, the teleport doesn't work for most people, so you got to run all the way out there. And the quest itself is really long. It's not like, as quick as some of the others. Certainly not as quick as Von 3. Who can't do Von 3 these days in, 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever is getting done. Shadow Crypt tends to be pretty fast, too. Faster than Madstone in my experience. I can't really argue with Von 3. I really like Von 3.
Yeah, Von 3 is awesome. Von 5 too, but 3 is probably better.
Anybody else?
Why my quest is better?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a debate, fight, duke it out.
Okay.
Come on.
I don't debate. I barely talk. Most of the time when I open my mouth, I stick my ass in it. So that's why I don't, but...
I want to see that, because isn't it supposed to be your foot? I want to know how you get your ass in there.
Oh, you see what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Madstone is kind of long, but, I mean, it's better than killing the same monsters over and over and over again. I mean, at least there's a little bit of variety. I mean, there's some tactics involved, and you've got some three pretty decent-sized optionals that give you a pretty large chunk of experience, and there's a decent amount of loot as you're going. So,
well, it's all vendor trash, right?
Judye, do you want to chime in here?
Oh, see, I don't know. Madstone Crater, it's fun. It's just that it's almost one of those things just to get done so you can get ready to run the giant. For me,
well, we're talking about XP run, so yeah, it's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my fave. I have to say. I mean, I like the concept, the story behind it. It's just somebody's going to get lost in that quest. somebody's gonna not make, is gonna get lagged, in my experience. At least maybe with the halflings, because we get distracted easily.
Totally, I agree with you though. Yeah, that is a flaw.
It's also got the bottomless, or the pit you can't get out of.
Yes, that lava pit.
The one nice thing I like about Shadow Crypt versus the other two is that it does have some name loot that you can get that can be functional. So that is nice. I mean, the other two don't really have that.
No.
All right, I'm going to give this one to Hafeal with 600 XP. I think you had a pretty clear... talking about it quick, it's good XP farm, good base XP and bonus, and the name loot you threw in at the end there. Bitter, I think they got you pretty good, dude. But I'm gonna give you 100 XP for the. You're the only one who mentioned outright optional XP.
Yes.
Out of any of these, so.
Sweet.
And Judye, we'll give you 300 XP because you did mention that there's XP throughout the quest, although not specifically optionals or how you get that, but that's a good one too. All right, so good job. Let's see, we've got Hafeal with 800, Bitter with 600, and Judye with 500 points that are absolutely meaningless.
I'm on the road to nowhere.
Nice. We're gonna go to our next question, and this question is, what quest should you avoid? Now, we have to start with a caveat here, because every single person picked Tomb of the Tormented.
You ruined it. You're taking our material away from us.
We had to adjust this question a little bit, other than Tomb of the Tormented, because everybody picked Tomb of the Tormented, which, if you haven't run, is the quest where it's the Rat Maze quest in Necro 3. So, in any case, other than Tomb of the Tormented, what quest should you avoid? We'll start with Judye.
I know it's a big XP, and I know if you have to run it in part of the chain, but I would love to avoid Wizard King as many times on my characters as I can, just because I get sick of, as a cleric, listening to my fellow party members whine about getting mummy rot. That pernicious mummy rot is the most annoying thing in the game. And then even if you try to stay away from the mummies, you have no clue as to all of a sudden you're like ticking off like a time bomb. You just feel icky after running that quest. It's all the mummies and all the undead, and it gets one mummy after another. It kind of gets old.
All right, Hafeal?
The one in this level range, the one that really just I seem to have bad luck is the rescue with Durward. It's in Threnal, and you have to run down there and you have to find him in that room and you have to escort him back to the beginning. And although I mean it's not necessarily impossible to do, it's certainly very possible to do. I just always seem to have bad luck and have to run it 2 or 3 times because Durward always effing dies on me. He runs into one of those fire things coming up, or there's some spawn, and he decides he's going to fight, and I didn't stop him soon enough or something. So that quest that really annoys me. It actually annoys me more than Coil does. So I would go with the rescue.
It's blasphemy. More than Coil?
Well, you can't fail with Coil now. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, that's true. They fixed it. Okay, so for me, no Tomb of the Tormented, huh? Can I say the entire Tomb chain? Okay. More specific.
I'll vote for you.
Excellent.
I think we'd all vote.
I'm going to have to go with Tomb of the Blighted then, because that's one that's also like mummy rot. You really, really get diseased continuously, and it's really freaking annoying, and I don't even want to talk about it. It's so bad. But I think it's worse than the mummy rot. Definitely worse than the mummy rot.
All right, so why is your quest more annoying than the other ones?
Well, my quest is more annoying because it's an escort quest, and we all know that escort quests suck, and they are just the worst things in the game. So I don't know who likes those things. The Whiz King, yeah, Mummy Rot's bad, but you don't die from it really. It's just annoying. You recall out and you go get it fixed over at that vendor over at the Necropolis. Tomb of the Blighted, I don't know, Bitter. I have to go with you on that one. That one's pretty bad.
Yeah. I don't need to say anything, do I?
I think I only ran Tomb of the Blighted once, ever.
And it was
At
too
all.
much.
It was. I've always played clerics, so I think to me that's why the Mummy Rot sucks the most. Is that I have people who are used to relying on you, and it's like taking an entire party of kindergartners through, all of them complaining about the Mummy Rot. It's like my feet hurt. I got Mummy Rot. I'm bored.
People need to
You
be
gotta tell them to be
responsible.
hot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they need to be responsible for themselves. I mean, come on, they can't rely on the cleric for everything. But
Well, that's
again,
why-
Yeah, I want you in my parties because I'd love to not have to heal myself. It's hard to find good clerics these days, so we got to get you over to Kyber.
Actually, what I found is really handy. They don't give them out anymore, but there was this ticket that you got from a convention that gave you could turn it in at the Leaky Dinghy, and you used to get 10 hand sanitizers, which was it's like a 10-minute long disease immunity, including Mummy Rot.
Wow.
And I always saved those specifically for Whiskey because of all the Mummy Rot. I think I'm looking at this. Hafeal and Bitter both picked quests and really harped on their mechanics as being annoying. The escorting and the continual disease part. You're really focusing in on the mechanics, whereas Judye was kind of looking at this idea of it's frustrating because other players aren't coming prepared.
Right.
However, given that, everyone picked Tomb of the Tormented, so everyone gets 1,000 XP.
yes.
Because really,
I think they could.
that was the answer. I think
they could have made that quest better if that third maze they had reversed it so that you don't guide the rats, but you're in the maze. I think that would have been better.
You used to actually be able to move the cadaver rats, not just the undead rats, but the carrion eater ones. You used to be able to move them around, which made the second and third ones a lot easier. But last time I did it, which was a while ago, you couldn't do that anymore, which is unfortunate because that was it made that a lot easier and a lot more tolerable, as opposed to having to fight because you can't really get around them if you can't move them. So, our next question. What monster is most likely to kill you? We're going to start with Hafeal.
All right. Well, I originally took this question in the kindness that you had in letting us, have an idea what we were going to be asked ahead of time as a named monster, as you know. But going on a more general monster and being respectful to Bitter and knowing what his choice is likely to be, I would go. I think of invaders and the flensers, the ice flensers, and I'll throw in the fire reavers because they're one and the same there. Those guys, if they get you knocked down, man, they are going to kick your butt. And, maybe it doesn't seem that much today because everybody's got, Uber gear and they're twinked out. But, I mean, running invaders in the day was a test. And being able to deal with those flensers and reavers were something else. And it was easy. I saw parties wipe at the entrance with those. So those guys are nasty.
It's actually what killed me when we ran invaders on DDOCaSplat. Bitter.
Yes. Besides party members or dumb, members, I would have to say just the general spellcasters. I mean, starting with Cobalt Shamans, I've seen so many permadeath characters killed by them, held, lightning bolted, and it just gets worse and worse and worse as higher up levels you go. I mean, being held and then just being pounded on by their buddies or flame striked, whatever, held, charmed. It's all bad. And on Elite, it's really hard to resist most of that junk.
I'm assuming on permadeath for your rules, you're not using ship buffs, right?
Generally, no.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering. Okay.
Judye?
I'm going to go with the Beholder just because of the randomness. You can be the most uber player and you can fail a saving throw and you're dead. and you're a soul stone. I just love, everybody back in the day they'd all buff up and then they'd get in front of a beholder and they'd wipe them clean.
Disintegrate.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to, what I want you guys to focus on here is we kind of go open it up round table style is, why is it easy to kill the other people's monsters instead of getting killed?
Wow, there's a silence.
Well, he changed the question on us. He's trying to throw us under the bus here. Do you see what he's doing?
That wasn't like, there was no prep involved in that.
Hey, wait, where's this in the notes?
Yeah. Well, beholders, I mean, they're beholders. They're big, huge. They can't really hide very well, and there's usually not that many of them all at once. But they still are nasty.
Well, I think the thing about beholders is they don't have a ton of hit points, and they can be ranged. So
Correct.
if you can see them, I think that's the...
They're done. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's easier that way. Plus, there's absorption items now that allow you to really get up and close and personal with them, too.
Death block item helps a lot.
Right.
Well, it's required, I guess.
Then you just have to hope you don't roll a 1, right?
Pretty much.
Well, spellcasters, they, even though that they are powerful, they're still squishy. You can have spell resistance. You can, as a cleric, there's remove paralysis to get rid of the holding, freedom of movement. You can prep against them. The warm hug of death does, make it easier to kill you, but if you get the whole entire party member surrounding casters, you can just pound them into the dirt.
Yeah, but it normally doesn't work that way, and usually the fights are fast. I mean, they will drop someone instantly, either a hold, flame strikes, lightning bolts, and bam. And if you're playing permadeath, man, you really have to focus on those guys immediately. And then you go jump on one, and there's one standing right around the corner, and they've all got ranged and pretty nasty. But yeah, they are fairly squishy if you get up to them.
Well, I think most people don't play permadeath, so if you're playing with ship buffs and you do have, like, if you have your Mantle of the World Shaper with your 5 charges on it, or if you have, your necklace, I think casters aren't as dangerous as they used to be. I think this is one of my arguments about challenge, is that I think that the game would be a lot more challenging if you take some of the ship buffs away, and suddenly beholders too. Beholders and casters suddenly become as dangerous as they used to be. I mean, what made Threnal, which is not a popular pack, really dangerous was some of the beholders in there. You did not want to run into them because you'd be afraid.
That long hallway up the top in one of those quests.
Beholder?
Yep.
Yeah.
That would wipe parties repeatedly.
Absolutely. Or, I mean, I remember being first level or second level and getting killed by the arcane skeleton in, one of the harbor quests. I mean, they're nasty, and the ship buffs definitely do help and everything now, and they need to fix that stuff.
And they did scale back.
They did scale back, but I mean, even on longer quests, I mean, your buffs are going to go away. Your mantle is going to run out of charges. All that good stuff. So the longer the quest is, I think the harder it is to resist that stuff.
Yeah, I remember, you'd run Waterworks, and there'd be a couple of places with those kobold shamans throwing those lightning bolts at you. Oh, you'd have
about Waterworks. Waterworks is below level here.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, pointing out that they got those lightning bolts at that level. So when you get up to level 8 and you're looking at some of the other caster levels and they start casting some of the higher level spells, yeah, it was dangerous, but I just think the ship buffs really, and some of these ways to absorb them really minimize them, unfortunately. Because I think it takes some of the, just takes some of the challenge out of it.
All right, I'm going to give Judye 500 points here. I like what you're talking about. The randomness, failed saving throws. Didn't mention the anti-magic cone. A little disappointed there.
Yeah, well, I thought about it after the fact, but...
Bitter, I'm going to give you 400 experience. I think you really, more than the other two, you really kind of explained what your guys can do that's really bad for you. And Hafeal will give you 200 experience. You did mention very well that they do smack you around. Didn't mention that they can Vorpal. A little disappointed.
Right. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. However, conveniently, that brings everyone to 2,000 experience points. So we've got a nice tight game here. And our next question is going to be, what piece of gear should you most be looking for? Remember, we're talking about levels 8 to 15-ish. We're going to start this time with Bitter.
Okay. I'm not going with a specific piece of raid gear or anything like that. But when you start to hit 8th level, you definitely need specific weapons to get by damage reduction of certain monsters. Iron golems, demons, devils, that sort of thing. You definitely have to have something like that. And when you get to the big boss at the end of the quest, if you have nothing to get by his damage reduction, you're not going to do anything. Holy, silver, all that stuff is pretty important. Even if you fight a vampire, you're going to need holy, some vorpals, something like that. I think that's really the most important thing.
Okay, Judye?
Well, I'm going to say Bitter's a teacher's pet, and he came up with a good one. And I had originally thought of the Royal Guardsman's Mask just because of the funness of it. Afterwards, I thought of another one, but we'll stick with the Royal Guardsman's, mostly because I still want one. Well, Ring of the Ancestors. It's in the same group of quests. And I just think that that's always good at this level to have somebody that can res the cleric when the cleric goes down. And that's usually what at this level we use the Ring of the Ancestors. I know you can use DDO points. I know there's some other clickies now. But for this level range, I think Ring of the Ancestors.
Okay, and Hafeal.
All right, well, I'm going to take both sides of the fence. I would say as a general item, you need fortification. You can get 100% fortification as low as level 9 for your defense, and you absolutely need a fortification item, especially as you move up in that 12 to 15 range, because the monsters do crit, and they crit hard, and they can 1 or 2 shot you very quickly. And if you're playing on Elite with some of the crowns, you better have fortification on, because otherwise it's going to be a very short run. I think that in terms of named items, I also, like Judye, had thought of named items, but I mean, it goes without saying, I always get a mantle out of Threnal or a voice. I prefer the mantle out of Threnal because it's got the 5 absorption items on there. I think it's a must-have item. You can use it all the way up to level 28 as a fail-safe when you're in certain fights if your jeweled cloak or something else, isn't usable. So I think it has value throughout the game. I mean, I would definitely, for any player, go get a mantle.
Hey, which one am I judging here?
What? I can't have both?
No.
I can't have my cake and eat it too? Go with fortification.
Okay. So why is your item, generic or specific, more important to have than the other ones?
I'm assuming you're talking to me, Patrick.
Anybody. It's open.
Well, the fortification is more important to have than the Royal Guardman or the Ring of Ancestors, only for the fact that, I mean, I've been playing 9 years. I have yet to have a ring fall for me. And it's really kind of a luxury item more than anything. You can probably, especially at the upper end of this range, you can get a hireling to res you as well.
Plus paladins and monks and stuff can res now, so it's not as important as it used to be.
Right. I mean, I can agree, because I went more named, and you guys were teachers' pets and went the other direction.
I'm sorry, I'm just a good little kid.
Did they leave Apple on your desk this morning, too, as well?
Totally.
Well, might have.
And beer.
Oh, see, there you go.
Beer.
That's even going all out.
Anyone else want to chime in here before I make a ruling?
Sure. I hate it when you spend like 30 minutes on a quest, you get to the very end, and what happens? You can't freaking hurt the boss. And it's all wasted time, and you get slaughtered. I mean, that's the worst. That's why you really need damage reduction. Starting in these levels. I mean, for no other reason than that. I mean, especially if you're in a group that doesn't even know really what the end boss is or what his damage reduction is, you definitely need to have yourself equipped so you'll be able to handle it.
Okay. Let's see. Who can have a tough one? I am going to give... let's see, Hafeal and Bitter each 500 experience. you kind of picked the opposite sides of the coin here. One being able to kill stuff, one being able to survive, so you can kill stuff.
Yeah, I mean they're all good choices. I mean
Yeah.
you can't really argue against any of these. So
Right.
And I like the item itself is a kind of a rough one, and the whole farming thing kind of goes against you. But the concept is great, so we'll give Judye 300 experience. Being able to keep people alive get people back up is important. I would say my personal one here would, and actually I didn't share my one for the last one. We were talking about what monster was more likely to kill you. I kind of immediately thought about the ogres from Madstone.
yeah, they hit hard.
They hit hard. They can crit you pretty consistently,
Ogre go
and
bam,
they
bam.
hit you a couple of times at a time. So fort would have been my answer here. But in any case, so that means we've got Bitter and Hafeal in a nice little tie at 2,500 experience, and Judye's slightly behind at 2,300. And it's time for
she's going to win, right?
maybe.
Eh.
Here's our last question. What adventure pack is a must-have? Remember, we're talking about levels 8 to 15, and we're not. Some of these choices might have epic versions, but we're not really going to be looking at the epic version specifically. You can mention it, but it's not going to get you any brownie points. So, we're going to start with Judye.
I like Restless Isles. It's right smack dab in the middle. It's, you used to have to run hiding in plain sight beforehand in order to get on, but now in the day of the guild ship, it'll just drop you up there, which is lame, personally. But it has one of the best quest names in the game. Bring me the head of Golafon.
Yeah,
And I
agree.
love it. Is the best quest name, hands down. It's fun. I mean, the trek to get to the two quests is difficult if you use a lot of people. You do need a map, but it's worth it. The floating islands, it's fun. It's a different terrain. You're kind of up above Stormreach. Falling off the islands, Gamer Child did learn this week that it will kill you.
There's no coming back from that in permadeath either.
No, and it was so sad to hear her yell, "Mommy!" as she fell to her doom. But the quests themselves are fun. The Slavers of the Shrieking Mine is challenging, trying to not kill the wrong madmen or monkey men. You're trying not to kill the wrong, because if you kill too many of them, you end the quest. And, you get some fighter in there with a great axe, and they got great cleave going, and whoops, you fail the quest. So it's a challenge.
All right, Hafeal?
I went with I would go with the new quest, Update 28, Devil's Gambit. And I know it's not out very long, but I have really enjoyed that pack quite a bit. It's the quests to me aren't too long. They're short enough, so if you don't have a lot of time to run them, you can run them. I thought they were well done. There's a large variety of things to do in each quest. I thought they were better designed, and they play out better than the prior pack. And I love seeing Harry and being able to have to try to chase him down and do different things. So I would go with Devil's Gambit, and of course it has an epic version too, so that's fun. And the name Loot in there is all good.
Absolutely, that's good too. I'm gonna pick Giant Hold, just because the sheer size of it. I mean, there's tons of quests, and there's epic versions of them, and there's a raid, and I hate the freaking colors in the Wilderness area, but the quests themselves, I mean, there's plenty of them covering every different type of quest you want to do. Good loot. Obviously, the raid is decent, not too hard for a group to do. And that's pretty much it. Content-wise, I just said something large. Really, I mean, nothing's
and
required.
It's got a tour with dragons in it too.
Yeah, exactly. It's an awesome quest, but nothing is required. Like I would have to buy that. I think that's my number one, though.
Spoiler alert, DDOCaSplat is going to be working their way towards Reaver's fate.
Nice. Yep.
There you go.
All right, so what do you like about your pack? What do you not like about the other packs?
I hate the refuge. It looks nice. But man, that's
The,
one where
the
you
Restless
definitely
Isles or the Refuge?
Restless Isles.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just get lost in there. I mean, the quests are good, but damn. One time, me and Patrick were on a bridge in permadeath, and the server lagged out while we were on the bridge. That was a scary experience. But anyways, besides that, it's
Were you thinking about what your next character was going to be?
yes, I did immediately.
Yeah.
I like, I really like Restless Isles. The problem that I have with it is the map is definitely confusing for players because I think most players don't know how to navigate that map. Even if you look on the wiki and look at the map, people get lost and go to the wrong quest or the wrong side. And I think that for that reason, when you get to these two great quests, and I think they are great quests, I think Golafan and Shrieking Mines are great quests. You just can't get full groups a lot of times. Maybe you can get one or two other people. And, I like to put up LFMs, and have people join. And, I think that's the big problem. Like Giant Hold, you can always get people to join. But like when I put up stuff for Restless Isles, it's really hard to get people to do it. And the new stuff obviously is new. So that's unfair. Everybody wants to run it and they're short, easily accessible. But that was my thought on Restless Isles. I do like the content, though, and I like those two quests.
I think we're kind of spoiled. My husband has exceptionally good direction, and so we always run with him because not having Daddy play or my husband play while I play is kind of rude. And I, Devil's Gambit I haven't run at the range here. I've always run it on Epic. Giant Hold is fun. I think it's just heavily run. Maybe we burned out on Giant Hold. We just recently, as a guild, did it on the Saga on Epic, and I just could not get interested because I was so done with Giant Hold.
Yeah, we've run it a lot too, but yeah, after taking a break from it, coming back, I'd definitely like to do it all again.
So I'm curious here, Judye, because I know that you've mentioned several times that you're prone to giving the gamer kid a map of the Explorer area and setting her loose. Would you let her wander around the Restless Isles alone?
Only as punishment.
Man, loaded question there.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm gonna blow my own choice there, but maybe if her room wasn't clean, I'd make her go navigate Restless Isles by herself.
I would never torture mine like that.
If your room's not clean, go play DDO. All right, I like this, Mom. All right, I'm going to give the win here to Bitter. I think the things that you said about the size, the variety of quests, even though it's maybe overrun, run a lot. I mean, that speaks to it being a pack you probably want to get. I think Hafeal kind of helped you out a little bit there too.
Well, we both said, we both wanted to pick Giant Hold to start with, so you can split the points between us.
Yeah. In any case, great debate. Thanks a lot. We're going to move on into our news, and there is some fun news this week. So,
boy,
buckle up, put some armor on, maybe grab a beer because this might hurt a little bit. We'll start with something that is kind of nice. Lemania was open this week. I believe it's closed now. They were talking about it being closed for the weekend. I didn't check. But the goal is to have the night revels in this update. Sounds like they're shooting for late next week, early the week after. So it's coming soon. With that, balance changes. So they announced this week that they've seen a lot of community feedback, both public and private, about ongoing plans for balance. And these are some changes that they are considering. I mean, they're pretty much going to change this stuff. They're still kind of figuring out, and you'll see here as we go through some of these things one by one, that there are some things that they are going to change, but also there's going to be some stuff in here that they've kind of rethought how they're going to change it, or some stuff that has changed since they announced what they're going to change. So, with that, as we get going here, as I completely just totally messed something up. There we go. All right. So this is from Severland's post. As with any post that outlines power reductions, aka nerfs, he's sure there will be a lot of players looking for explanations and thoughts, and he's going to give a lot of those. I'm going to kind of break this up. There was a large post that just kind of outlined what the changes were going to be. I took kind of, and then after that there was a lot of their thought behind it. We're going to talk about the thought first, and then kind of go through, and I tried to take their comments, their later comments, and questions and changes, and I kind of grouped them by what's changing. So the structure here is going to be different than what the actual forum thread followed, but I wanted to kind of try and make it a little bit more accessible for this format. The overwhelming feedback they've been getting for the past year, except for the first implementation of champions, is that the game has become, quote, too easy for many players. They recognize that there's always an array of opinion, so while the game may be too easy for some, others would see it as just right, and so others feel the game remains difficult. The general trend has been to increase class power as they've been working through their class passes, and these balance changes are meant in part to keep the game challenging but fun for as wide a group as they can. They expect to get a lot of feedback from the coming weeks and months on these changes, and if things need further work, they do plan to react to that. And they said again that game and class balance is an ongoing process. The goal is to have a more balanced game, but understand it's a refining process that involves continual reevaluation. It means if your favorite class is slightly behind or in front after a pass, they are fully capable and willing to tweak it some more. And they've said this a lot about these changes on a couple of different streams. Severlin was on the weekly Wednesday answering some questions. Cordovan was answering some questions that he could on the Friday stream. And something they've said multiple times is that this is not a one-and-done pass. This is the next step, where they're going. And in a lot of these, it's actually a continuation of steps they've taken before. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. I would say, just from my perspective, don't freak out. Take a breath. It's, these are changes. Balance is an ongoing, really tricky process. This is what they want to do, and some players have been giving feedback, and I would say expect more changes. I think it's kind of the big thing. Don't freak out too much. They're going to keep adjusting. And a lot of these are actually mechanisms that they're planning on, that they've said when they implemented them were mechanisms for maintaining and adjusting for balance. And some of these are also bugs that they've mentioned in the past that we knew they were going to change. They're just changing it all at once. So, balance has been one of the top topics of conversation in the community for a while. They've said they want to implement some balance changes. So, here we go. Just kind of some baseline stuff. The current measure of melee effectiveness is Swashbuckler. Classes like Bard and Paladin have good spells and strong class abilities. They can expect, if they build entirely towards melee, to deal at a good amount of DPS. Barbarian, Rogue, Rangers, as examples, basic class abilities aren't quite as strong, so characters built entirely towards melee would do more DPS. Fighter has very little basic class utility. Their competitive advantage is extra feats, so they have some work cut out there. The only complaint with Swashbuckler is that Coup de Grace is too easy to pull off for a Bard. It's fairly low on their list of concerns, though. They don't feel that Bard builds are dominating the playing field. It's more of a design nitpick. Severlin did mention that Swashbuckler was already finished when he came aboard, and it was very popular. They decided that, other than some bugs, they like that. That's kind of the power level that we can use as a baseline. Some other things that players communicated us when they started talking about class updates is that armored characters were well behind evasion builds, shields didn't offer enough benefits to offset the loss of DPS, on-hit effects were useless at endgame because they didn't scale. Those were also some other things that they had considerations, was that there are a few important DPS stats except for crits. There was no good way to give characters an incremental increase in magic damage mitigation. Saving throws offered binary protection. You either made it or you didn't, and are subject to bad luck. Spell power was an excellent tool for gradual increase in power, and melee and range had no equivalent. There was no good ways for abilities to scale into epic levels, and temporary hit points were considered terrible, including by me, by the way. I was pleasantly surprised how well that works with Warlock. So, the overall design was introduced some powerful stats that allowed a solid foundation for incremental power, increasing both class balance and atomization. They introduced melee and range equivalent to spell power. They introduced the magic equivalent to PRR. They tied on-hit damage scaling to those new stats, so on-hit effects could scale into epic levels better. They used the new stats to provide gradual level-based scale for epic levels. And then, so their current goals and design challenges. 2-weapon fighting builds are dealing too much DPS, generally because of on-hit effects, which they get more of. They've relaxed many of the internal cooldown limits on hit effects, and they expect 2-weapon fighting builds to scale quickly when they change them. The balanced fighting style, they balance the fighting style feats to compensate, but that was a world before Assassin and Tempest were updated, and players largely associate 2-weapon fighting with those trees. They also have a problem with 14 Paladin hybrids being better than other options due to Holy Sword. Yet a severe nerf to Holy Sword would drag down 2-handed fighting, and Vanguard Paladins. Ravager Barbarians had too much self-healing, and basic armor offered too much mitigation for its cost. They're happy that armored characters are relevant, but they want to cut back a little bit. Basically because they looked around and saw that everyone was wearing heavy armor, including casters. They want more build variety. Essentially, the changes they have posted that we're going to go through are bug fixes and balance changes that are only to continue the plan, but address concerns, both public and private. There's also some fighter feats in here that's not meant to replace the fighter pass. Anything any of you guys want to say before we get into it?
What were they thinking? I mean, some of the changes don't make sense, and what they were, it's mind-boggling. Like they say, there was no scaling for on-hit effects, except there's no.
Well, that was before. So some of that was before they started adding that stuff in, right? So that was a comment referring to before ranged and melee power, and putting those into the abilities so they now scale.
Okay, well, because that makes sense then. But why would they post that now? I mean, what?
I think he was trying to give. I think he was trying to give an overall big picture. This is where we were. This is where we've come. This is what we've done. Meaning, like the adding MRR and the melee and range power and putting those into the abilities so that they scale better. And then this is where we want to go. So there's kind of a really big picture going on there.
Like a halfway point here or something like that.
I don't even want to say I don't want to say halfway point because I think that gives a bit of a misleading idea of what they're trying to say. But we're in the middle of a long sweeping process of balance changes. I think would be a good way to say it.
Yep, that makes sense. I like that.
And he intentionally gave some examples of things that they have changed, like range and melee power, and introduced them into the classes and abilities so that they scale a little bit more. But same thing with MRR. All right. So what we'll do is we're going to go through these things one by one, and then give some feedback on some of them. Some of them will probably be a lot shorter than others. But we're going to start with Holy Sword. So there's a couple of changes. This is now a spell that affects the paladin and buffs whatever melee weapon is being wielded in the main hand. It no longer persists on your weapon, but instead buffs the weapon you are holding in your hand. Yes, it buffs two-handed weapons. It can no longer be used to buff offhand weapons or shields. Originally, when they announced this, it was not going to affect missile weapons, but they since decided that it will affect missile weapons. If you change weapons of the spell, it will drop off the unequipped weapon and instead be applied to the newly equipped weapon. Nice life change, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about that. Although I'm curious if that means it will stack with something like deadly weapons as well, because I don't think it does right now. So that could be interesting. So some of the thoughts they had on Holy Sword is it's very strong when it first appeared. Over time, its relative power has been blunted by additional class passes that offer alternative ways to gain those competence bonus to criticals. As such, they've introduced alternate options to the ever-present 14 Paladin version. As they continue the passes, they feel that Holy Sword will remain a strong option, but not the only option. It's why it didn't see as much of a change as people might have been expecting. They really didn't want to hit two-handed fightings, but they really felt that two-weapon fighting, they want those to be strong, but essentially they didn't feel that those builds should be doing 40% more damage than other styles. They thought that was too much, so that's why they took it out of the offhand. They'll be watching Vanguard Paladin builds to make sure they are still fun and competitive after the changes. Although I don't think I'm overly concerned about that, since I don't typically think of the shield as being a high DPS function, at least compared to like a main hand weapon. But I don't really play a Vanguard; I play a Defender. So, any thoughts you guys have on Holy Sword here?
Didn't everybody know that there was a nerf coming to Holy Sword? I mean, we've known about it for a long time. I don't find anything here it's a surprise. I love the fact that you get to save a few spell points by having the spell shift to a new weapon, so I don't have to recast it every time. I don't know. I don't tend to play min-max builds, and I don't tend to try to squeeze out every last bit of thing out of my characters the way I know a lot of some top-end players do. For me, this is not a problem.
Yeah, it's a good change, or neutral.
Yeah, I think I like that they didn't change it how they were talking about. This change clearly favors a two-handed fighting style, or if you're not basically anything other than two-weapon fighting, won't see a large drop-off in DPS here. So I think that's good. Yeah, there you go. Let's go move on to the next one. Cover these two together. Blood Strength from the Barbarian Ravager. The portion of the enhancement that heals the user when they kill an opponent now has a 1-second internal cooldown. And the bonus to critical threat range is now a competence bonus. No surprise there.
Yeah.
With the crit threat range. I have not really played a lot with the healing part. I never really went back and adjusted my Barbarian, mostly because I probably want to pull his fighter levels out before I do that, and I haven't gotten around to that. Which I should remember to buy a Heart of Wood while they're on sale. In any case, I noticed some people that were concerned about this. I think 1-second cooldown is still pretty quick, although if you're killing a lot of stuff fast with cleaving, then I can see where that's going to come into play. But
I don't care. I mean, it's one of those changes. I mean, I didn't understand why barbarians can heal themselves anyways to begin with, right? I mean, it's something they just made up, I guess.
Well, they're trying to make players self-sufficient because of the way the game has progressed. So, I mean, I don't think I'm with you, Patrick. I don't think a 1-second cooldown is anything to tear the world down about.
Yeah, I think barbarians. I like the idea that a barbarian does a lot more more damage than other classes, but is a little bit more of the melee equivalent of a glass cannon. I mean, they have a lot of hit points and some stuff to mitigate that. Personally, I'd rather see some better investment in damage reduction or something that was more thematic than the self-healing stuff, but I mean, it's all kind of related to survivability, so I'm not overly complaining about it. All right, two-weapon fighting. Two-weapon fighting animations were fixed, so there's no longer a weird jump on the fourth animation. It's made the fourth attack slightly quicker. As part of that, they took out the 2 melee power from the 3 feats. So a lot of what they're thinking here was that by changing the animation, it's a little quicker. That will account for the loss of the melee power in the feats. I think that's fine, personally. I thought it was kind of funny that a lot of people were freaking out about the melee power going away when they were pretty clear when they introduced melee power to all the combat styles that it was a mechanism to balance the combat styles with each other. So I know it accounts to 6% of DPS, but if they're also changing the animation to account for that, I'm okay with that, personally.
Well, I have 2-weapon fighters, and I don't know. I'm a little concerned. There was a post from Sev from yesterday at about 5:40, if you do, on the dev post, and he was commenting in response to Mr. Windup Bird, who had done some testing, and there is an animation. There's continued animation problems, which, 2-weapon fighting is still not as good as they think it is, and Sev acknowledged that yesterday. So I think they got to go back and relook at this still a little bit. I don't know. I think two-weapon fighting. I'm glad they fixed the fourth animation. That's great. But I certainly hope they address the other issues regarding the speed, the way it works, which Sev addressed just yesterday. I don't want to read that whole post, but it's in there. But basically, two-weapon fighting is 20 to 25% slower, if I'm reading it right, than what they expected from their testing.
I always thought the two-weapon fighting was probably the strongest out of all the combat styles anyways. So when I first read this post that they were taking melee power out, I assumed it was just a balancing thing, not we're compensating for changes to the animation thing.
Right. Yeah, but then I think some other people started getting into, I'm not a number cruncher the way some of the other players are, but I think some other players really kind of went into the numbers for Sev, and I think they have to look at it a little bit more closely before they make any final decisions.
I think that this is probably one of the biggest scares for people. There's a lot of people who have built their builds around two-weapon fighting, and they're nervous, as anybody is with, characters that are affected during balancing. I know my husband was looking at it, and, we were kind of worried about his two-weapon fighters. And I just think that, I just hope that they just don't overdo.
Well, I think this is one of those things that this is like the third or fourth time that they've adjusted the power in these feat lengths, too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something to keep in mind. Because they put it in initially, and then they took it out, and then they put it back in. It's not like... This one's been waffling back and forth a lot. So
yep.
And I think when was the first change? What was that first change? What was it, 2010 or around then? They did that first change to two-weapon fighting, and oh my god, we had people on the forums.
You're talking about when they changed how it works from a physics standpoint, because it used to be that the main hand would make a physics check to hit, then the offhand would make a physics check to hit, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the result of that, particularly when we got, Shroud, it kind of started to show up, but it really hit the fan when we got to Tower of Despair.
Right.
In part 2, it was kind of just a slugfest, and everyone was two-weapon fighting. So they changed it so that your offhand had a % chance to hit based on your offhand % chance or whatever. The easiest way to do that was to get feats. So they made that change, which was a major change, particularly if you didn't have the feats. Because if you didn't have the feats, then you basically lost like 60%.
I think it goes up to 80%.
Well, at the time, it does now. Now it's 20 with no feat, 40, 60, 80 with the 3 feats. But it used to be that even if you didn't have the feats, you still got all those attacks. So,
yeah, and I think the point being that I think people are very nervous, as Judye said, about this change. We've been through this kind of before, and even if it's not the same, there's going to be some perception overlap, and I think that's going to be a concern.
Yeah. Man, someone doing construction at home?
Not me.
Actually, it's the neighbor.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, it's apparently revenge for redoing it a few months back.
There you go. I would say the thing with two-weapon fighting, I would say, is if you're concerned, they're only taking out 6%, which is not as much as some other things are happening here, and it's a mechanic they've said from the get-go that this is the balancing tool between the various styles and the feats. So, it's not really the one that I would consider being a concern point. Moving right along, I'm going to skip one for a second. Repeating crossbows and double shot, they fixed a bug where double shot was not being reduced for repeating crossbows. The double shot chance was supposed to be divided by 3 for repeating crossbows. Apparently this became, people expect this to be standard because there was a lot of outcry about this, I guess, even though when they first introduced double shot, they said that from the get-go that repeating crossbows would have their double shot divided by 3. So this is another one where I thought it was a little funny that people were kind of outcrying about. It's a bug fix. It was always supposed to be this way.
Do you know how many people are out there right now on repeaters? Just go log into the game. Everybody has got their repeaters out.
I know.
See, that's why they're complaining, and I'm like, I agree. This nerf needs to happen.
Yeah, it's. I just thought it was kind of funny that it's a funny example of how a bug gets introduced, and then people start to kind of think that it's supposed to be that way,
Right.
and probably didn't really. I know I didn't notice. I don't play repeater a whole lot. My artificer's been kind of on the back burner for a while, so he's my main crossbow guy. So I haven't been doing a lot of repeating, but I don't know. It's one of those things that I bet I kind of feel like most people didn't actually realize that they were not having their double shot divided by 3, and now are really upset that the double shot's going to get divided by 3. I just think it's kind of funny. On the aspect of double shot values over 100% now have a chance of producing a third attack. It's going to wrap, basically. So if the chance is equal to the amount the value is 100, so a double shot value of 130, for example, would always produce an extra shot and have a 30% chance of producing a third shot. Previously, it capped at 100. For technical reasons, double strike will still cap at 100. That's a good change. There's not really much to complain about that. So
That's good. Although, getting well over 100 is pretty damn hard.
I redid my my enhancements right after they did Deepwood. They changed Deepwood Stalker, and between the tier 5 20% from Deepwood Stalker and the capstone and Arcane Archer, I was sitting somewhere around 70% double strike. Just resting. So.
Right. So with buffs, yeah, it definitely gets higher. And I've got a ranger too that's pure ranger, and I don't know. We'll have to test it when it comes out. But
yeah, I actually ended up dropping the capstone from Arcane Archer in favor of the capstone from Deepwood Stalker on the grounds that 20% or plus 20 range power was going to be stronger than 20% double strike. Part of that was because of the double strike penalty from many shot. Speaking of which, you like this segue? Many shot. The ability is being redesigned. Well done. For the next 20 seconds, you add your base attack bonus ×4 to your double shot and range power. This ability puts 10,000 stars on a 30-second timer. On a 30-second cooldown, the cooldown is 2 minutes. 10,000 stars. For the next 30 seconds, you add your wisdom ability score to your range power, and you add your monk level ×5 to your double shot. This ability puts many shot on a 30-second cooldown. The cooldown is 1 minute for that. We kind of knew about these already because we talked about them with the Arcane Archer, but they're in here as well. I don't really have a major problem with this. I thought Sev's post was fairly convincing in that you actually end up with more DPS. It won't be as bursty, which is kind of less fun. But they've been saying for years that many shot was problematic, and many shot also no longer going to have the double shot penalty, which I'm really excited about because it means double shot is actually relevant, or at least way more relevant than it used to be. And I just said that I changed how I did my enhancements because of the many shot penalty to double shot. So I like that that's going away. I don't know. What do you guys think about these?
So we go from having machine guns to having fast-firing weapons. I guess that's not too bad.
Yeah, it used to give you 4 shots per one when you had many shot going. It was very nice. They used to drop all my buffs and take the boss down pretty much in a minute. Now, I think it's a severe nerf, but it might be better for the game.
I think it is definitely balancing. But you're going to notice it.
Probably more than any of the other ones, I think. This is the one that I think players will most notice out of any of these changes. Certainly the ones we've mentioned so far, and I'd probably hazard to say that the ones coming up too, looking through them. I think this is the one that you're going to be most noticeable because many shots not going to be as burst heavy. Now taking the double shot out, that's going to be a big boost. Particularly since my ranger is sitting at 50 some odd double shot right now that he wouldn't get for a full minute if using many shots. So
I think that it'll be interesting to see. For me, sometimes reading it doesn't. Yeah, I have to see it in practice. You know what I mean? I want to
Yeah,
see
absolutely.
how it actually gets implemented. That's my hesitation. I'm like, let's see how it actually plans out. But I think players who are overperforming right now and really enjoying it, of course they're going to be upset. You know what I mean? So, but I think for the rest of parties and the way the game plays, if it's done right, I think it'll still be fun to play these types of characters with these weapons, while at the same time not dominating groups the way they are right now.
Yeah, I think they're putting range power into these abilities, which didn't exist before, which means that some of those other abilities that you have will be a little bit more effective in that manner. Granted, you're not going to get 4 arrows like you were, so that's kind of part of it.
Yeah. We have to test it and see, but it's hard to say. But I mean, I like how they put cooldowns on 10,000 stars and many shot.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that was totally required.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that we knew was coming. They've said that in the past that mini shot was problematic. And mini shot didn't even used to have a penalty to double shot. I mean, they put that in there because they felt it was too powerful. Particularly once we started getting double shot, so that was problematic. Let's see. Mechanical reloader for rogue mechanics. The alacrity for non-repeating crossbows is now 30%. It was 40%. A minor change. Pulverizer, legendary dreadnought. The bonus to critical threat range for bludgeoning weapons is now an insight bonus, which I'm not sure if there are other insight bonuses to critical range.
Well, they're changing all the critical threat range bonuses to something, aren't they?
Yeah, they're changing the enhancement ones to competence so that they don't stack with each other.
Okay.
But this is insight, so I'm kind of curious on that. The other big change, improved critical. These feats now add a bonus to critical threat range based purely on weapon type. I'm not going to read the list. If a weapon would normally be times 20, then it gets +1 to its critical range. If it would be 19 to 20, it gets +2. And if it was 18 to 20, it gets +3. They're doing the same thing with Keen. Some things that are kind of a little wonky with this, if the weapon has an improved critical threat range on it, then it won't get that's not going to double anymore. It's going to be, you're still going to get, if you have a great, let's take the Sword of Shadows, for example, which has a critical threat range of 18 to 20. It's a great sword, which would normally be 19 to 20, so it's only going to get a +2 to its critical threat range instead of a +3. The issue here was that what was happening was that improved critical would double things that weren't supposed to be doubled, like an enhancement or other such things. I think someone mentioned in passing that, I think Chai mentioned it this week, actually, that people were having like 9 to 20 critical threat ranges.
7. I think some people got it down to 7. It was
That's
crazy.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that needs to go away. So there's some issues here. The changes do mess up the balance for like assassins and swashbucklers who have enhancements that normalize weapon types. They're going to implement additional changes so that characters with improved critical feat will still gain the extra threat for underperforming weapons to maintain that balance. Let's see. There was other, like I said, the weapons that have a wider than normal crit range are not going to. Their bonus is still going to be based on what their weapon type is, not what their critical threat range is. So there'll be some changes there. They've been reading with interest the concerns with named weapons that have increased threat ranges. That interaction is part of the design, as those provided too much benefit already. The fact that some of those weapons were lower levels, requirements were better than endgame weapons highlighted that problem. Let's see, anything else there? I think that's kind of it with that. What do you guys think about this?
I found it to be a little confusing when I first read it, the improved critical and keen. I think there was some, if you read the thread and I was following what Jotman said and what some of the others said, I guess I misread it the first time, the way they were adding these threat range to these weapons. So if you have a rapier that's 19 to 20, and now you have improved critical, and it's adding 3,
Rapiers are 18 to 20.
or 18 to 20, thank you. So if you're adding 3, are you adding 3 to that? And what kind of bonus is it? So if you look in the notes, it doesn't say what kind of bonus it's going to be. Is it stacking? Is it not stacking?
So they said it has a bonus type. I don't remember if they mentioned what it was. There's a unique bonus type, but improved critical and keen share it, so they don't stack with each other.
Right, I totally get that. How many keen weapons are there in the game? I guess some people have some, but I mean,
More
but
than
I
you
don't
might
seem.
think.
Yeah, I know, but they don't seem to drop that often. I mean, I certainly have a few in my inventory, especially for my rogue. But, I guess that's the concern, is that, improved critical is adding to these. And I took Jotman's point, for example, to say that, it would be nice to give us a reason to use some of the lesser used weapons in the game. Maybe they need more of a boost rather than some of the others. I mean, this would be a chance, if we're going to make changes like this, to kind of enhance some of the other weapons that, whoever's using a light mace, nobody. I mean, it would be nice at some point to take changes like this to enhance some of the other aspects of critical ranges, to give us more variety in what people are hauling around in the game as their weapon choices.
They did say that encouraging and revamping weapons that are not used very often is outside of the scope of improved critical changes, but it certainly is something they would love to do in the future.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that post. So,
I mean, just give a plain +2 or +3 to all weapons to make the light maces actually, usable. I mean, it's pretty simple, but other than that, if they're not going to do that,
interesting thought. I don't know.
It's pretty mechanical change. I mean, it's just not really going to do much.
That gets
Except for
away
sword
from
shadows.
D&D source material too. I mean, the whole improved critical keen thing is very D&D pen and paper. You double the effectiveness of your weapon damage, and part of the way that weapons are balanced in D&D, or there's kind of two main ways that weapons get balanced, or 3 main ways weapons get balanced. They're how much damage they do, their critical profile, and what proficiency do you need to use them, right? Like, there's a lot of weapons that are simple weapons, and they're not supposed to be as good as exotic weapons. That's why they're simple weapons.
right.
Sure, but a feat is something that a mage isn't going to take to make his quarterstaff hit harder, for sure.
Hopefully.
So, he could, yeah. I mean, what am I talking about? Well, of
You
course.
got somebody out there that's going to make that build.
Yep.
There's somebody out there right now screaming at us, saying about how much this is going to destroy their Wizard Q staff Eldritch Knight
Yes,
build.
yes.
So,
Well, there are quarterstaff builds and rogues, so
yeah. But
Well, I have a quarterstaff build right now. Well, it's actually more monk than rogue, but it's it's a lot of fun to play. So I'm certainly not the only one that I've seen out there with them. I just took this as to be a change that says, okay, we're going to remove the stacking effect. That's kind of the way I ended up on it, and that's what it sounds like you're saying.
I don't think I mentioned it either, and to be clear, that this was considered a bug. It was not working as intended, that taking improved critical
right.
would amplify enhancement bonuses to critical threat range.
Right.
That was not intended.
And I'm totally on board with not having
Yeah.
7 to 20 critical range on weapons. I can get on board with that. I think that's probably pretty fair to say, yeah, we should be having that.
Yeah. Let's see. I put some stuff in the wrong spot regarding mini shot and 10,000 stars. I want to make sure that I hit before I move past it. Mini shot and 10,000 stars will have a reduced rate of fire, obviously, since you're not getting 4 attacks anymore. So fishing for mortal fear and similar procs will be slightly less effective. I think slightly is probably a poor choice of words there, because it's going to be like 50% less effective. But they do understand that, and they did design with that in mind. There's also a bug in Fury of the Wild. Many shot and 10,000 stars can be used to gain back uses of adrenaline. With the now reduced rate, utilizing that bug will be less effective. They understand that and design around that as well. It's also a bug, so they're kind of debating Do they want to legitimize that build by changing the wording on Fury Eternal so it officially supports ranged attacks, or fix the bug? They're kind of going back and forth on that. Many shot and 10,000 stars will still provide a massive burst of damage. They really don't think those builds will lose their burst feel. But they get that it's going to be less. And there we go. So I just want to make sure I threw those in there regarding that. Armor changes. The amount of PRR that armor provides has been changed. What they do is basically, so they take your base attack bonus and multiply it by 1, 1.5, or 2 based on light, medium, or heavy armor. They also fixed a bug where players were getting more PRR for armor which they were not proficient with. PRR and MRR offered by shields remains unchanged. As a result of dialing back armor, they're also taking out MRR completely from armor, which, yeah, so MRR is no longer applied to any of these. They think there's been a lot of good discussion, in particular on MRR, and whether these changes will put us back to a state where everyone feels compelled to take evasion. They've read some suggestions that some smaller amount of MRR might be added back to the armors, and they've been looking at that option. He did want to point out that it's not going to take us back to pre-armor up balance. The PRR formula is more generous. The PRR offered by armor is still higher. And there's more sources of MRR. Any thoughts on this one?
I think it would be great as long as we don't see casters running around on heavy plate anymore. It just didn't seem right to me.
Agreed.
Build diversity is good for the game.
Yeah, but what I don't like is those fighter feats to increase your PRR. They're fighter-only feats, and there's 4 of them. I think that's a bit excessive. And especially since, like, a paladin can't take them. I mean...
Well, I think this is part of the fighter revamp that is going to be coming to give fighters something to spend those feats on because they get so many of them.
Well, it's not meant to replace the fighter pass. Since we kind of moved on to that, let me go through the feats real quick, just so people have a frame of reference for what we're talking about, since we brought that in. So the ones we were talking about were the heavy armor training feats. There's going to be 4 of them at fighter levels 2, 6, 10, and 14. You get plus 3, 6, 9, and 12 PRR and MRR while wearing heavy armor. It only works for heavy armor. The feats all do stack. They are all fighter specific. And the lower feats are not prerequisites, so you can just take the highest one and not the lower ones. Okay, now you can talk about it.
Go ahead, Bitter. You were going.
Well, I mean, I said what I was going to say, but, I mean... They're fighter-only feats. I mean, that hurts any other heavy armor wearer out there, paladins mostly. So, and it's 4 feats. I mean, obviously, I would skip the first one because it only gives you 3. But still, I think it's pretty tough. Even, I mean, I know fighters get extra feats, but come on, 4? That's a little excessive.
Well, yeah, and Pallies are already starved. Now, I have a sword and board Pally, and I don't know. I guess she's level 28 right now. I'm not. But she's got the shield. So I'm not as really concerned because shields aren't being impacted. And, I think I had mentioned in this thread in responding with my comments that I think all of this is fine, but here's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see them take loot, like named armor, and give it MRR. Make that one of the features of that armor.
Hell yes.
Now that, to me, would be help to compensate for some of this.
So some things that they mentioned with this is, and there's also tactical features we'll mention here in a second. They don't want, so you don't have to take these with bonus feats for starters. You can take them with any feat you want. They just require fighter levels. They're not considering this as replacing the MRR and PRR that's lost. It's adding things for fighters. That's kind of where they're coming from. One of the things Sev said was they didn't want it to just be open for all classes because they didn't want it to feel like attacks that everyone suddenly had to take these feats. They also want to provide. They feel it fits into the theme of fighters get more feats. It provides some more differentiation for fighter builds. They also feel that it helps reward more fighter levels, if that makes. So you get higher up, you can get more of a benefit from these. So that's some of the thinking that was going on there.
So no fighter dipping to get some stuff, stick to fighter all the way. Yeah, I mean that does make sense that way. But I mean, feats. Why can't they just be enhancements or something like that in one of the fighter lines?
I agree with that.
There's some thought there. Well, they haven't done the fighter revamp yet, for starters. Just keep that in consideration. Although they kind of did the defender already, so.
Or do it like Dragon Marks, make it one feat and then the rest enhancements, right? They could that's something they could do later.
That's a really good idea. I like that one.
Yeah, agreed.
I think part of the thing here is I don't think they expect most people to actually take all of the feats. It's more of they want to encourage you to take more fighter levels and give you more of a reward for taking that, so you can take the better one or maybe one or two later. There are also tactical feats at levels 4, 8, 12, and 16 that provide plus 2, 4, 6, 8 to the DC of tactical feats, which again they stack. They're not prerequisites, so you can get plus 20, which is a lot. You're probably gonna. I mean, I will say this: it does provide some really interesting build choices here.
But it's still useless against anything that you really, really want to trip and knock down.
Well, that's so trash
8?
mob's great. Yeah.
I mean, plus, if you wanted to go all nuts on the tacticals, I mean.
But if orange and red named are immune, then
Orange are not immune.
So
You
I
can
thought
stun an
somewhere
orange
there
name.
then that's great. You know what I mean? I think that obviously bosses you don't want to be done that way. So
Yeah, I thought they were immune too.
I
Okay.
thought orange were immune, and I thought that was verified somewhere in the thread, but I can't find it.
You
right now.
can't. Orange are in epics. Orange are immune to instant killing, and they usually have better saves. One of the things they said too is so they don't expect all fighters who want to use tactical feats to take all of those new feats. It's largely why they're not a progression, but rather 4 distinct feats. For example, characters might opt to just take the +8, and that's enough. Characters with fewer fighter levels don't have access to the best bonuses either, so they might take the other ones. I think they said, I'm trying to find it, but I think they said something along the lines that they're okay with fighters reaching a 95% success rate with these feats too.
Well, let's think about this for a minute. In 9 years, I could tell you probably on 2 hands how many pure fighter builds that I've run across. And out of those fighter builds, I could probably tell you how many I've ever seen that were DC'd out for tactical feats. And the one tactical feat that was used for a while was Trip. Trip was, very popular. So if this makes fighters more viable and a better class and gives us more choices, I'm all for it. I think this gives, some real options to people. That's the good part about it.
Yeah, more options is always good. Make fighters stronger is always good.
Yeah, I think I look at these and I actually have to think about some of my fighter feat choices now, whereas before I didn't really have I could. Now, granted, I had just enough feats to take everything that I wanted to take, but now I have enough. There's other feats that I might consider taking, and there's also the whole thought that my fighter currently has evasion. So, would I want to invest in heavy armor instead and take some of those feats or other such things, right? So,
and I'd say this: if they're looking for splashing, if you're only going to get a +2 and you have to take 4 levels of fighter to take that first level feat, they're really not designing it for splashing either.
No.
Doesn't seem to me.
yeah, I mean, I can certainly think of like the monk fighter splashes probably liking these feats, the tactical feats. I mean, there are 12 fighter, 8 monk kind of builds out there still a little bit. That's an extra +6 to those abilities, and they're probably not going to use as wide a variety. Part of my fighter has all the he's got improved Sunder, Stunning Blow, and improved Trip, all of them together. So he's kind of more spread out in how he can use them. So, but
that's more of a heavy splash build. I meant like that
Yeah.
2-row, 2-splash, the light splash.
Sure, absolutely. But I am totally going to drop greater weapon specialization for +6 defeats. I mean, he's got 2 CC abilities there so they get a +6 to use, and that's
Imagine
great.
stacking this with there's that epic feat in one of the lines. I can't remember it right now, where you get a big bonus to tactical
+6.
feats.
Yeah, at the low level, it's level 1 in Legendary Dreadnought. So,
Right.
See, the next one, Divine Grace, is now going to provide a maximum bonus of 2 plus Paladin level ×3, which this is not it's the first time it's being actually implemented, but they've been talking about this for like a year.
Yeah.
Which even with 2 level, I mean, you have to have 2 levels to get this, which is still +8. So that's still a big bonus to saves. So, see, Eldritch Blast, the spell power scaling for Eldritch Blast and several enhancements has been reduced. Eldritch Blast went down by 20%. The cone stayed the same. Chain is down by 15%. The aura is down by 20%. Stricken and Consumer down by 25%. And the burst and blast from the Enlightened Spirit are down by 20%. So a pretty big shot for them. It's about 20% damage in those abilities. There's a lot. Most of this was directed towards heroic. They feel that warlocks are way too powerful in heroics. There was a recognition that it will affect epic levels, but they feel that epic levels are still pretty powerful, but they're also willing to look and address that as well. So, that is all of the changes. And I don't know, I would say a lot of where they're coming from, too, is they have made some adjustments just based on feedback, even without people on the Mania. But, again, they want to see how a lot of this stuff plays out on live, and then they plan and expect to do future adjustments. So don't get too freaked out.
The way I looked at it is this. Look, they're going to make changes no matter what they want to do. What I really like is they're trying to be as transparent as they can. Sev and Varg participated in this thread. They're trying to tell us what they're doing and where they're going.
And why they're doing it.
Exactly. And they acknowledged, hey, we're making these changes and we may need to make more. And I think that's reasonable. And I think that we have to trust them. They've got more data than what we see. And, hopefully it's going to play out for the best, and they're going to try to do the best they can.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just balance changes. I mean, I don't really care. I mean, it's not like we're competing or PvPing against other people or anything. So whatever they do is what they do. I can't really complain.
And I have to. We just roll with it. I mean, if you've played long enough, you've learned. You've been through this multiple times.
Yeah,
it's
over
true.
All the years, yeah, definitely.
I would say if you feel like this is a really major effect on your ability to enjoy the game, I get that, and there are certainly people. I don't want to minimize or marginalize that perception and that play style. I think one of the reasons why I look at this and I'm not overly concerned is because the way that I build my characters is, and I said this before, I have one of every class. I build a class. My build starts with, what class is this character going to be? Okay, it's going to be this class. Well, I already have builds that have this kind of combat style, so it's going to be this class with this kind of style, and then I build that to the best that I can. My enjoyment of the character does not come from how awesome and amazing that character, the character has to be viable and good, for sure, but I'm not concerned about, the top 20 being in the top 5% versus being the top 20% of character effectiveness and power.
What? You're not trying to lead the kill count every quest you're in with every group?
I'd like to point out that last week, my healer led the kill count in Fire Peaks. Just saying.
So you are trying to do that.
Hey,
Well,
it's very rare for a healer to get there, so when they do, you want to be able to boast about it.
You know, Implosion was really effective against the skeletons. What can I say?
Oh, that's funny.
Now, should I mention something they should buff, but they haven't mentioned, or nerf that
Go
I
for
haven't
it.
mentioned? I'm not sure I want to. But you know how insanely powerful my fighter, Stalwart Defender Vanguard is? I mean, he's insane. Truly insane. I mean, he's got +8 to strength, +8 to con. He does damage with shields and extra damage with weapons, and he's crazy.
Yeah, they're great builds. Although I would say that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about those builds either as being overly powerful as much as the other ones. But yeah. Some quick notes on the way out of this. They are looking forward to seeing more feedback from players, particularly on the Mania. Especially, they would love for you to go and beat down the like test kobolds that they've got. They put some bigger beefier ones up there, so you can just go to town on nailing them. They do have some specific questions they're looking for player feedback on. One, does the newly smooth 2-weapon fighting animation look good, and is the shorter animation providing too much of a DPS increase? The other one is, do they want to legitimize Fairy Eternal's gain of adrenaline when using missile weapons, or do they want to fix that bug? I would say, on the Church's Ladder one, I would say legitimize it, if for no other reason than it gives you another option for Epic Destinies.
Yeah, there you go.
If you take that out of the equation, then I feel like you're pretty much pigeonholing them into Sharati, maybe Legendary Dreadnought, maybe Crusader. I mean, that's kind of where you're going to end up. So I like having choices. Choices are better.
Choices are good. And hard choices, too. You want people to have to make some hard decisions sometimes in building their characters.
There was some questions about... So this is some previous news before the balance sheet has come out regarding Many-Shot. They both create additional arrow... Double Shot and Many-Shot create additional real arrows in the world, each making their own separate collision checks as they fly through the air, which is kind of the reason why it's a little bit of a resource hog. It's not ideal, but it's also pretty deep in the code. They don't really want to touch it. It's not really the collision checks that cause issues. Adding all the extra on-hit effects are not insignificant. It's something they try to cut down on when they can, particularly in designing new items and abilities. Some players have suggested Many-Shot should just be a stance. They're specifically not looking in that direction because they don't want to flatline the DPS. They want that peaking with Many-Shot. Many players point out the problem with Many-Shot is the balance is feeling ineffective when it's not active. That feeling is a problem. Getting 80 seconds of DPS over 20 seconds and then 100 seconds of DPS over the next is possible but pretty extreme. So they want to even out the damage, but they don't want it to just be completely flat. They want the burst, but they don't want you to feel like you're only effective during the burst. In regards to Arcane Archer and DCs, they've had a lot of discussion about that. They're currently inclined to keep them scaling with Wisdom and Enchantment. They know there are lore reasons for Charisma and Intelligence, and they're sympathetic to that, but there are ramifications for choosing to allow Intelligence or Charisma that they're currently not looking for, particularly with interactions with Harper and Mechanic, for instance. They know Dexterity would probably be the most easily powerful, but power is not the same thing as good or interesting builds, which I agree. I would be fine with Intelligence. I see why they're not doing it. I'm totally fine with Wisdom. Dexterity made no sense to me for a DC for a spell. They know monks often build a lot of Wisdom, and it may or may not be a primary stat, but they don't expect that this particular change is going to be responsible for monctures being overpowered, which is a fair point. I think there's other issues with that. So they basically they understand the idea that it being based on Wisdom would be too powerful for monctures, but they don't think that that's going to make them overpowered. They're kind of already there. So, new DDO store is on Lamania, or was on Lamania. There's going to be a new one to try. They wanted to know how responsive it is. Was there anything particular that seemed to take too long? How was the navigation? Did you like or dislike the appearance? All that stuff. So if it comes up again, make sure you check that out. Anyone get a chance to look at the new store?
I don't have Lamania loaded anymore, so I have not.
Same here.
Nope, not me.
DDO Players
First
News
flat.
did a short little video about the new store, so he kind of went through some of the changes, and if you want to look at that, you can. And then, let's see, there was one last bit of news that I pulled out that was kind of buried somewhere, but it was talking about player challenge and various levels of player challenge and who's getting challenged, blah, 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 blah. But basically it was that they want to provide some players with increased challenge through Reaper difficulty in the, quote, not coming soon future, end quote. So I just wanted to put that out there. So Reaper is coming, but not soon, which is understandable because they're releasing like 3 epic raids. They're talking about gnomes coming as early as update 30, which would be the first update of next year. So that's, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Let's see. Bonus days, Buddy Week. You get plus 5 XP per extra party member, per party member in your group. So you can get a plus 25 bonus if you have a full party, assuming you have a full party.
That's really nice.
I'm
It
not
is.
complaining.
But that's weird. I mean, so it makes the quest easier and you get bonus experience?
Woohoo! Double win.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again?
So if
win.
you have a full party, it's easier, right? And then you also get bonus experience on top of that. So
Yeah. I mean, it
it's not
encourages grouping. I mean, there's nothing wrong with
bad.
that.
It does, but I mean,
And hey,
so
it's a
so-
whole week. You can get,
that's
assuming
true.
you put in the work to get a full party, you can get a plus 25 bonus to heroic or epic XP for a week.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Last time they had the bonus up, man, there were groups all over the place. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, definitely will cause
Yeah.
groups and new players probably show up. Hopefully.
Might try out the whole grouping thing. Yeah. See, store news. So there's a new store coming. I was a little. I was going to check with them and I didn't. But Cordovan mentioned in one of the live streams that if you have points codes stored up, I think he was specifically referring to the cards, but I'm not entirely sure. You might want to use them because they won't work with the new store. I don't know if that applies to all point codes or how that works. I think if you actually buy them from the marketplace, they will work. But if you've been sitting on point codes, particularly free ones, you might want to use them. If you have a question about it, he's probably not. I didn't tell him to do this, but if you have questions about whether or not points you have stored are going to work after the new store comes, I would recommend you send Cordovan or Tolero a quick personal message on the forums and say, hey, I have this code. This is where I got it from. Will it still work after the new store goes live? If you don't want to use it right away. So just be aware of that. Your points may not be usable after the new store comes. Sales, the happy news. The sale this week is Rise Again through this coming Thursday. 20% off of True Hearts of Wood, Lesser Hearts of Wood, Quest XP elixirs, healing items, and spell point potions. The freebie for the week is a bracelet of friends with the code FRNDS, 1 per account. Community news. See how quickly we can cruise through some of this stuff. The 163rd Chronicle. And then, of course, I get a name that's crazy. Alcasalatoa. Blah. Alcasalatoa. Whatever. So he's working on a DPS calculator called the DPS Oracle, which looks freaking amazing. It's like every combat style, every weapon, like you put in the how much damage the weapon does, what kind of style you have, and then it calculates your DPS, which is pretty crazy and impressive. The Heroes of Hinfolk are hosting a trivia event on Galanda in the Anvil Fire Inn. That is next Saturday at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. on the 24th. Ginger Spice is getting ready to debut a new video series featuring Warlock, which has got a few videos up already. Musk runs Let Sleeping Dust Lie on Elite. Toon takes on Orcs in the Feast or Famine, and the Shady Rogues headed to Archer Point Defense. They're a fun group. The guilds. The Stripling Warriors is a Wayfinder-based guild of low-level players looking for others to join them. Send an in-game tell to Zero, Zerro, Dragonsbane to learn more. The comment for the week. If your favorite character carved a pumpkin, what would they carve? I'd carve a beholder. My Warforged barbarian eats beholders for breakfast.
I turned the pumpkin into a beer stein or something like that.
pierced. I think my rogue would probably turn it into a projectile of some kind.
Huh. Use the seeds as missile weapons?
Exactly.
Ugh, that'd be messy.
Get splats all over the place.
Judye, do you have a pumpkin carving thought?
A soul stone.
Ooh, nice. Go with that. Let's see. We got a shout out for episode 401, talking about wilderness areas with Cordovan and propane. DDO Players News was joined by Saba Jade for their, I think it was 53? I didn't write it down. Let's see. Other stuff going on. DDO Cocktail Hour had a episode 91. DDO Gamer looked at the best part of DDO. Enrique discovered a bounty against him in-game. The Stormreach campaign wrote about the Zoroian storyline. Let's see. Changes are coming to tomes, which we didn't really talk about in this show. Talked about it last week. Shows are going to be... Tomes will be usable at any level, and then they will apply at the appropriate levels. If you are looking to buy a tome of ability, you might want to buy it now. They're going to go up by 50 points when that happens. Let's see... D&D Adventures League wrote about playing pen and paper D&D from home and online. So the link for that is in the Chronicle as well. Other stuff going on in the community, some videos. Voodoo had his Subterranean East walkthrough. He did Central last week. Axel talked about the Major Balance Pass. The Weekly Wednesday had several in on, and he had some interesting things. They did like a little Q&A with people in the chat. Some interesting things I pulled out of that. They'd like to add test kobolds or some other DPS testing environment in the live worlds, not just on Lemania, maybe as a ship amenity, but they haven't really figured out how they want to do that. Particularly because they kind of need to do it in a quest environment so that you can actually use all of your abilities, which you can't in a lot of public areas. So there's a little bit. Talked a little bit about the holdup between working on Druid and Monk. A major part of that is kind of their combat styles, which sort of live in their own environment, and they want to address those at the same time. So that would be unarmed and wolf or bear form is kind of what they're talking about there. Clerics. Several mentioned that they'd like to add domains to add some flavor to clerics and differentiate them a little more from favored soul, but they don't know what that will look like. I'm going to assume that everyone's in favor of that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's a person who mostly plays clerics. I'm going to say yes.
What domain would you pick, Judye?
I'm not really quite sure now. You just put me on the spot. I hadn't heard about that, so wow, my brain is open. Mind blown.
I mean, it's a longer term thing, so
yeah,
that'll probably happen when they look at clerics, because I think the clerics are on the longer term for their pass. There's questions about opening the lower level fighter feats open to everyone. He said basically they want to see it in the ecosystem. They don't want it to be something everyone takes, which is actually a lot of the reasons they're making some of the changes, like with the heavy armor. They don't want everybody wearing heavy armor. That's kind of things going with that. Gnomes are coming, possibly for the anniversary update. Update 30 was what they said. And he also talked about other races. He would like to add Tieflings and Azamars, and he even talked about Genasi as a longer-term goal, which would be, I mean, that's 3 more races. That's some longer-term goals, considering a 10-year-old game. Some of the things they're running into, though, is like the tails and horns are proving problematic for Tieflings, so they're not really sure how they're going to get around that. Tactilicious and Craftalicious had a blog on the balance changes. Nice, well thought out there as well. Lightning Post. Survey question for the week. What is the first MMO RPG you were involved with? Mine's easy. It was DDO. I didn't really actually play other games. I still don't.
Mine was DDO too.
Text-based muds, does that count?
I don't even know what that is, so sure.
Way back in the day.
That's going. Yeah, back with Dial-In, there was an equivalent to D&D on
AOL.
AOL, and I can't remember the name of it, but I used to play that.
Yep, me too. Pretty much everything since they started.
Yeah, right.
All right, we're gonna close out the show, guys. Do you have anything you want to plug before we close it up?
Ladies first.
I'm good.
You're not going to plug your blog?
Oh, I can plug my blog, yeah, but that's old. No, come and check us out. We're Gaming with Gamer Child. Actually, last night during our raid, I talked to another mom who has a 12-year-old boy, and we are going to arrange their play dates, so there will be a blog post about that in the future.
That'll be fun.
Exactly. She's looking forward to it. It's even better. He's a boy, and he lives very far away, so that's how it should stay.
Is their playtime together going to have to be supervised?
Of course.
Okay. Something occurs to me that him running with your daughter, if your husband was involved in a quest like Undermine, would be a poor choice.
I would have to agree. There could be problematic.
All right. You want to plug your Twitter or anything?
You can find me. I am on Twitter as Judye Nazareth, and on Facebook I have I have Confessions of a Geek Mom out on Facebook as a page as well.
Nice. Hafeal or Bitter, anything you want to plug?
Just put a shout out to Mac over on Kyber, to Enoch and Luna and all the Mob Wrecker and all the guys in my Tuesday night static group. Awesome. And I have a thread on the DDO forums, Where Am I? So when you guys see some pictures up there, try to figure it out.
I would like to plug permadeath.
Do it.
If you think this game is too easy, try permadeath. We're on every server, every sort of rule set you could think of. Come out and try it. It's awesome.
I'm finding it actually a little difficult just from the standpoint that I'm trying to get us killed. I'm failing miserably.
Well, I mean, we did do, invaders on Elite.
We smoked it.
Yeah, smoked it.
You guys are all cowering in your boots, and we smoked it.
We did.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show, especially the folks in the live chat. Always fun to see some folks chiming in there. And thanks to these guys and Judye for joining me today, especially in the middle of the day with families and stuff. Thanks also to the cast contributors. Great group of folks that are really helping put this show together. If you'd like to be a contributor, send me an email at DDOCast@gmail.com. We'll get you involved. Or post on the forums critiquing me like Hafeal did, and I'll pull you in. It's a true story. Happens. Thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making DDO happen, and thanks to Cyberbears for hosting this podcast. It's a great group of folks there that help us out. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, calendar, previous shows, swag, other fun stuff. We have swag. You can buy swag. And it's not like a money grab or anything like that. It's just if you want it, it's there. If you want to be a part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like us to answer, a topic you'd like us to debate, or just have as a general topic, if you just want to say hi, leave a comment. You can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. I try to keep up with all that stuff. It's great when I get people's input on that. Want to make sure that we're doing topics that you guys are interested in. Our closing tip for the week. I thought this was appropriate given the balance changes and the mass amount of freakouts. Relax, have fun, it's only a game.
Amen.
So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to check out all the new balance changes on the way.